Hello everybody, John Felt here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing. Well, wow, what a crazy week. We had a little bit of everything last week. We had snow, we had heavy rain, we had severe storms, flooding, very big fire issues along the west coast, and above all, a lot of cold air just about everywhere. So a very active week. Now this week we have a lot of stable air around, so it's going to be a lot quieter this week. But you know, that's pretty typical of fall. We get a very active, vigorous system followed by a very stable air mass. That's pretty typical for fall. So let's talk weather. Well, you can see most of the rainfall over the last week was over the eastern part of the U.S. Actually, this here came in the form of snow. It got into the colder air. So this band right here came in, like I said, came in the form of the snow. There was a frontal boundary right through here, and pumping this moisture in here as it sort of rode this front, got in the cold air and it turned into snow. Southeast U.S., some very heavy rain that extended up right along the mid-Atlantic region, and quite a bit of severe weather as well around the Washington, D.C. area. So you can see the snow that we received over the last week, record amounts of snow in the Denver area. Then as the band of snow sort of came across Kansas, it was sort of scattered. Then we got a couple bands of very heavy snow, 2 to 4 inches, and even locally 4 to 6 inches in the areas of yellow, and at least if the estimates are right, this is 6 to 8 inches in a few spots. Now most of that is melted. This time of the year the snow will melt fairly quickly, even in the cold air that we have around, but there's still a bit on the ground. And you know, I'll be talking about this fairly soon as we get into December, but you know, we have these systems that come out of Texas, and these are these panhandle hooks, and that's what produced the rain and the snow. And very typically they're followed by an Alberta clipper here, and you can see the snow here, these snow streaks northwest, southeast, and that is the second system that followed right on the heels. So I said we had a very stable air mass. You can see dew points are maybe in the 30s or less over most of the nation. The only moisture has been shunted off to South Florida, so we have a very dry, cold, stable air mass. And any fronts that go through, and we are going to have reinforcing cold fronts, but they're not going to have a lot of moisture to work with, so precipitation will generally be light. Now last week you can see where we had a week of cold temperatures, a week of warm temperatures, and it was that boundary where all the action was. So severe storms in the warm sector, snow in the cold sector, and very contrasting temperatures. Now in the cold air, as it pushed through, we had our first occurrence of 28 degrees in this area shaded in light green or brown. So those are areas that sort of progressing off here to the east, the first occurrence of that hard freeze. Every place in this image that is shaded has received the first reported occurrence of 28 degrees. So we still have soils that are quite wet over the upper Midwest. These are areas in blue. And I put something out last week about the harvest season. It's only about 50% complete, and certainly with snow on the ground, that's a big hindrance, and some of the wet soils also are hindering. But most areas here in the lighter green or unshaded, those are acceptable working conditions. Now in the western U.S. you can see it's still quite dry, so the unusually dry conditions, unusually hot conditions, and then we get the high winds, localized high wind flow that contributed to the high fire danger over the last week. We take a quick look at rivers across the nation. Sort of unusual this time of year, and I'm going to put out something on this. I'm going to do a little research in this and sort of point out how rivers this time of year are usually at a fairly low level that then starts to extend into the winter months. Right now they're running unusually high in many areas, and in fact the black dots are indicating locations above flood stage, primarily over the upper Mississippi and the parts of the northeast U.S. Okay, so really not a whole lot of change here from last week. We had this area of high pressure here, and that's pushed the jet stream north. The jet stream bowing north, and then downstream it dips down to the south. A lot of jet energy, that's the coloring. And what that's resulting in is not much change here as we go for the next couple weeks. We sort of look at where this dip in the jet stream is, and we sort of lose the blue shading, so that's saying it's not as deep. But if you still look at the end of week 2, where's the axis of that dip in the jet stream? Well, it's right there. It hasn't changed a lot. So what we're looking at here is not a whole lot of change with unusually warm temperatures over the western U.S. Matter of fact, it looks like those anomalies peak around maybe 8 degrees or so above normal, and cold anomalies, and they peak at around 10 to 15 degrees below normal over the eastern half of the U.S., but primarily the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast U.S. Now, like I said, it's got a lot quieter week here. We do have some precipitation here in Oklahoma, sort of the southern plains region into the south central U.S., maybe some localized heavy precipitation along the immediate Pacific Northwest, higher elevations, and some generalized lighter amounts elsewhere. We also have some light snow, maybe some pockets of moderate snow in Wisconsin over this week, but overall scattered. Okay, so taking a look at the extended, like I said, not a whole lot of change. Unusually hot over the west, unusually cold over the east, especially over the Midwest, Ohio River Valley, Great Lakes, and Northeast U.S., and not much change in the 8 to 14 week 2. Here are your precipitation anomalies, generally ahead of the front, where before the stable air moves in, unusually wet, but then once at week 2, once the stable air moves in, pretty quiet again. And that's sort of the theme of this briefing, a bit more active ahead of the front, and then less active behind. So really the biggest weather hazards outlined here are below normal temperatures, some frozen precipitation here in the Great Lakes region. But overall, I think the big synoptic story will be the unusually cold weather continuing into the middle of the month. That's this week's briefing. Hope you have a great week. Take care.